best, be, your most authentic, beautiful, shiny self, because the brighter your light shines, the easier it is for other people to get lifted up as well.
Hello, and welcome back to You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I am the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency. If you are in Iowa, go ahead and give us a call. If you are looking for in-office therapy at any of our 6 office locations, or if you are interested in in-home behavioral health services for your children.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am the Vice President at Heart and Solutions in charge of the Behavioral Health Department. So that is where we go in-home and work with children 4 through 18 on different behavioral skills. And we can also see them in school, in the office, or right now through telehealth as well. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
So we post on Sunday nights. So we just encourage everybody, batch up your laundry or whatever task you just hate doing, batch it up and save it for Sunday nights at 5:00 p.m. Central. We will be putting away our clean laundry into outfits for the week so that you always have clean clothes to wear for the week. Go ahead and listen with us on Sunday nights. And then that gives you that entire week to get scheduled with your own counselor, get connected with a new counselor, or get connected with any of our guests from that week's show or our resources from the show. So today we have a guest here with us. She was previously a coach. She's now a published author, and she specializes in working with people who are not only gifted and talented in certain aspects of their life, but also are highly sensitive individuals. She works with top performers, helping them to cope with some of the individual and very specific stresses that arise when we have success in our lives, when we have positive things happen for us, and that when we create positive things in our lives using the gifts that we have, that all sounds great, but there's stress that comes with that. And so we're very excited to talk to Cathy Spaas today. Cathy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, you have a new book that's coming out, and it's called Spotlight Stress, the stress of being in the spotlight. And I am super interested in hearing about this because from the outside, right? We look at celebrities, we look at people who are doing it, they're winning at life, and we go, oh, wouldn't that be great? That must be so wonderful all of the time. And the truth is that people in the spotlight are humans just like we are, but we don't talk about this enough. So I'm so excited that you are out there putting out this message and giving support to those people. So tell us about Spotlight Stress. What is this book about?
I'm so glad that you're going into that, because it's a new term that we've created, because I noticed working with all these professional performers and artists, I've noticed that, pretty much all of them struggle with the same challenges. And most of them are highly sensitive, because highly sensitive people have a very strong activated right hemisphere of the brain, which is where empathy, creativity, and all these interesting tools lie that we can use and benefit from, especially while performing or acting or, helping people or getting into character, these kind of things. And that's very interesting because, as you can hear, those are beautiful gifts. They're extremely talented at what they do, thanks to that stronger activated right hemisphere of the brain. But, there's also the downside of the medal. Like, we are too much consumed by what other people might think of us. We spend too much time trying to please other people so much that we tend to, lose ourselves in that process. So that can be quite a challenge. And especially in this day and age where, every move that they make is being monitored, and there's the social media, the mainstream media, there's just everybody jumping at their skin when they're making a wrong move, or even just a move that's not wrong for them, but considered wrong by others. I mean, they're being judged, and it's like they're under a magnifying glass, and every move they do is being magnified, while already they have this trait of themselves that, they will evaluate and reevaluate themselves over and over again to see, did I do that right? Was that good enough? Was this okay for other people? So that's making it really tough on some of the even most brilliant performers in the industry. So yeah, that's a little bit in a really small nutshell, what this is about.
For performers, for people in the visual arts, for actors, for people who are performing, there is so much more focus on how are people perceiving the things that we're doing. Because if I'm performing in a circus, the audience experience is what my goal is. That is what I'm concerned with. How are they seeing it from this angle, right? If I'm a magician, okay, the audience is here, so this is what I'm going to do. When I officiate weddings, it's okay, there's the audience, the guests, there's the audience, right? So we need to do it this way. It looks awkward from our side, but we're doing it to be forward facing and front facing the people watching. And so there's so much that we have to, when we're performing, we have to train ourselves to go, okay, who is my audience and how are they going to experience the art that I'm doing? And that shift that kind of happens right between, oh, I love painting in my garage, but now I'm doing it in the public eye. And so there's now a shift that must happen, right? When somebody kind of goes through that transformation, and it becomes more about how other people going to buy this art? Are other people going to write positive reviews about this art? Are people going to share this art? Versus, oh, I like painting. That looks pretty to me. I want to hang that on my wall. There must be such a shift there. And that shift for somebody who's not naturally that way, who's not naturally that outward facing and as interested in other people's opinions or feedback, that must be a very dramatic shift for an artist, a true artist, to go through as they go into the public eye.
Yeah, for sure, because most of them, 70% of highly sensitive people are more introverted. So a lot of these performers like being on themselves, like some downtime by themselves in a quiet space, one-on-one, or just alone, to recharge their batteries. But now, once of a sudden, everybody wants something from them. Everybody is pulling at them from all different directions. And we have this expression in Belgium, you've hit the nail on the head with saying, that they've started with doing this from a place of joy, but then there's this extra pressure because they did it a good job. But now there are so many expectations, and because we're such pleasers and perfectionists, we put so much pressure on ourselves that, they just crash under the pressure. And there's often a few that can rise above that because they thrive on pressure, but most of them crash under the pressure. So that's why I'm here, because I want to build that support system for them, help them find their own confidence, their own voice, their own superpower, without putting that pressure on themselves. You can still thrive, you can still be a perfectionist, but in a healthier way. And that way you will achieve much more success than when you crumble beneath all that pressure.
And I love what you said about, there's the pressure that we put on ourselves, is different from the pressure. Yes, there is going to be all that external pressure. Beyonce can't help how much external pressure there is on her to perform, but she can control, and we can all control the pressure that we put on ourselves. And that is the one piece where we do have some control. And so I love that you focus in on that, and on pleasing ourselves versus having to try to please everybody, knowing that that's a losing battle. We can't. There is no way to do it. Wow. So you have a show also, where you're going to be interviewing celebrities, and it's the same name, Spotlight Stress, this term that you've created. And tell us about this show and who you'll be interviewing.
So on the first season, we had actors like Eric Roberts, Kelly Rutherford, Dee Wallace, Bill Oberst Jr., which is a very, very highly horror character, which is, I mean, he's amazing. And it's also so interesting for me because, I'm also just human. So I have these judgments about things, and I'm super scared of horror. For example, I cannot watch it because I won't sleep for weeks. So I just don't, I just don't watch horror. Just give me any comedy. But so I was going into that conversation, for example, like, oh gosh, horror, that must be like some rigid or like, I don't know what I was expecting, but not this, because then I met Bill Oberst, and oh my God, that's just the warmest, kindest, most beautiful soul I've ever seen. And then I'm like, wow, this is so enlightening for me. I mean, getting to know you know that they're not the characters they play, but he's a bad guy in the horror movies, so there's just something inside of yourself that's just prejudgmental, if that's even a word. So it's so interesting to meet the people behind the characters, and also to see that they're just human and they love to laugh, and they also are stressed, and they also use techniques and tools to build their confidence and to shine their light. And that is what we are talking about in the show. It's all about finding your own superpower, claiming your shine, and owning that. And for me, it's about inspiring other people so that they can use these tools and use these tips and techniques and strategies that are being handed to them by the guest, by myself, to serve them.
It's very, very interesting about particularly artists who are performing artists and play very well-known characters, or play characters that that the audience, that when we watch it, we have very strong feelings about those characters, and how those feelings must transfer to the characters. I remember anecdotally, I read somewhere that the actress who played Emily on Friends, right, that she had been offered to come back and didn't want to, because she got so much hatred towards her for playing that character, right? And it impacted her life, her day-to-day life. When she would go to the store, people would treat her as though she was that character, as opposed to treating her like a good, lovely person that she was. And how much pressure there must be on living in a world where other people see you in a totally different way, not based on who you are at all, or treat you in a totally different way, not based on who you are at all. And it almost, in some ways, it sounds like there's some mirroring in terms of when we experience racism, or we experience sexism, or any kind of prejudice against us. If somebody treats me differently because of my ethnicity, right? It's that same feeling of, gosh, you don't know me, right? Like, you don't know me in the grocery store. And I would imagine, and I never thought about this until talking to you, but I would imagine that that as actors, there's some of that same feeling as well. Gosh, you don't know me. What does that say about me as a human?
Yeah, and that is one thing that's really hard for them to categorize because, you know, especially being highly sensitive, we tend to take things very personal because we really, really want to do a good job and make sure everybody is happy. So if that's not the case, it can hurt our heart like badly, you know. So that is one thing. But then there's also the collective thing, you know, all that negative energy that is being projected towards her. That is also something that I think that's quite significant there. So I would say in her case, working with her, for me, that would be very interesting because I've actually not worked with people yet who had that kind of experience. But it is interesting because what I, in my position as her coach, would do was, first of all, we would work on the part where, you know, she is enough, she is safe, she feels so confident that it doesn't matter what the world thinks about her. She will still really adore herself and see her for the goddess that she is. So that is part A. And then there's also part B, which is that collective energy. So I would work a lot around her energy levels and how she can sort of make that negative energy not stick to her, but sort of move through and past her so that she is free of it. So that's one that I would think that is very important as well, because we are so sensitive for these energies as well.
And I would imagine for actors and actresses, part of the role, part of the job is being able to absorb different ways of thinking, different ways of being, different energies, and projecting those energies back. And in order to do that, you really do need to absorb them. And so it's kind of a superpower, to be able to absorb those and empathetically understand a character and feel the way that a character feels and think the way that a character would think so that you can move like them and talk like them, but at the same time protect your own energy, protect what is truly you, and not get lost in that. And I never think about these kinds of things when it comes to especially artists, and not only actors, but I would think musicians and other people who are judged based on their work. There's so much emotion in music, and we put so much of ourselves into music, that somebody judging a song of ours, or some work of ours, it could feel extremely personal, whether we're on that sensitive side of the spectrum or not.
Yeah, for sure, because they put a lot of effort in their work, you know, whether that's as an actor or songwriter, a singer, you know, you are bringing the work out and you do that to please people, to make them happy, to make them, you know, to touch lives. And if you get like reversed feedback, then, you know, you feel like you failed. Well, actually, that's never true because you can never please the entire crowd because there will always be different opinions. So that perspective is so, so important. And what you've said earlier in our conversation, I think that's such a beautiful topic to circle back to, um, from the inside out. Because once we start to focus too much on the outside stuff that's going on, we completely lose connection with our own inside. And that is where the magic and the power lies. So it's very important for these performers and artists to really turn inside, but without shielding themselves, because very often that's what happens, you know, or they'll numb themselves. There's so much beautiful music about these topics, actually. And I can tell you, 80% of them doesn't even know that they're highly sensitive or highly gifted. So that makes it even harder for them to cope with it. But the most beautiful SOS by Avicii breaks my heart every time I hear it, because there is no louder scream for help than Avicii was sending out to the world. And he was highly gifted, highly sensitive. And that is the reason why I feel like, you know what, I need to do more. I need to step my game up even better because I didn't know him, but I should have. I feel like you never know someone's story until you've met them. But I do feel like there's a lot of things that could have found their place when he just had more information about how his brain works and why he thinks in a certain way and why some things weren't working out for him. And even better, how he could turn that around so that he could thrive and that he could have been that beautiful soul enjoying what he did. And sometimes that includes setting stronger boundaries, which is not always what their environment wants to hear, but it's just like a dance between the inner work and also the boundaries that come with that sometimes. Yeah.
When people become well known, I would imagine that it becomes more difficult to set boundaries because people think that they are welcome in to, they can read in a magazine what your favorite foods are and what kind of body wash you use. And so there's an intimacy that is one-sided that I would imagine happens with people who are in the spotlight, where other people feel like, well, I remember I read about you when I was 16. I remember, and people have all of these experiences with this person. Oh, we watched this movie at my first sleepover, and have all of these experiences with the other person and feel like there's an intimacy there, but it's one-sided.
Mhm.
And it can be, I met one of my heroes maybe a couple months ago now. And I felt that as I went, oh my gosh, this person changed my entire life. I want to give him the biggest hug in the world. And I'm in line to meet him. I mean, he's met over the course of that week, he's probably met 1 million people, right? And so, it was very, for me going in, it was very highlighting of like, this is a one-sided relationship. All of the experiences that I've had in my life because of him, he doesn't know about any of that. It's not anything for him. Or he doesn't know about it. And so it just is amazing, that dynamic that is very unique to people who are in the spotlight, where other people have these very intimate relationships with them, but one-sided.
Yeah, and also you point out a very interesting topic there as well, because like we've said earlier, that it's hard for them to receive that negative energy. But this is also a thing because most of us did not learn to receive that much while we were growing up. And receiving all that love can be very, very hard and challenging for a lot of people, especially when we're more introverted. It's like, what the fuck is going on? I did not ask for this. Even though it's something beautiful, it can be very overwhelming. And they cannot sometimes not know what to do with all these emotions. So they'll go and numb themselves. And you can do that with sugar, with drugs, with alcohol, with sex. There's so many ways. I mean, I've used a ton of them to numb my senses, not knowing what I was doing earlier in life. So, yeah, I can imagine that receiving as well, the good as the bad, is challenging.
Absolutely. So, I mean, gosh, very, very interesting. And now you've got 2 other books that will be coming out next year in 2023. You've got, and these are multi-author, so you're a contributor for these books, Arise and then Success with Source. What are these books about?
So Arise is actually a bestseller that came out, I think, early this year, or 2021. I'm not so sure. The time is like flying away. But so that is a
still
bestseller.
2020. The last 2 years, the last 3 years have just all been 2020.
Yeah.
So Arise is already a bestseller, which is where I just shared my personal story in there of transformation. And that's what all the authors did in that book. So it's really interesting. If you feel like, you're on this turning point in your life, it's very inspirational to read these stories, because they also have some practical tools and insights to really help you do that and achieve that. And then Success with Source is the book that is coming out next year, also a multi-author book. And yeah, that's actually how entrepreneurs like myself found success working with source, with energy. So that is a multi-author book, but then there's also my own book, Spot by Stress, which is going to launch next year as well. So excited.
Very exciting. Very, very cool. Topic and ideas, because gosh, we're surrounded by seeing celebrities all the time, right? Like magazines and books and Netflix and commercials, and we just see them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, celebrities can seem like products versus people. And so, for me, the older I get, I feel like the more I sometimes feel really bad for famous people. I think also, if I watch a movie, we went and watched Spirited that has Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell in it the other weekend. And gosh, I loved it. But as soon as I got home, I could not wait to watch behind the scenes stuff and interview stuff, because I just feel like it's so much more interesting to me the older I get, the people and what it was like making the movie, and what it was like writing the movie and shooting the movie and having to travel to all these places and do all these interviews, right? And all of this stuff that goes along with it is sometimes a lot more interesting. It was a great movie, but it's sometimes a lot more interesting than even the movie itself, or the product, the show itself is. And I think that's something you're really highlighting here is
Yeah, because
humans.
They're always expected to show up cheerfully, fun, with a good wit, with a good sense of humor, looking fabulous, in a good mood. Well, that's not life, that's just not life. But it doesn't matter what is going on in their lives. They just have to blank shift that shit and go on and perform even when they're being interviewed. So I found that in the beginning, when I just started working with these celebrities, it was really hard for me, because once you just have that first conversation, that intake conversation, you're having that first chat, and you can just feel those walls, oh no, everything is fine, oh, I'm good, yeah, and I do this and this and that, and oh, everything is good. I'm like, what the fuck, who are you kidding? Nobody's life is perfect. What the fuck are you talking about? That's okay, I'm just human, you're just human, we're in the safe container here. But it's something I've really had to learn to work with, because they're so guarded, and I understand why. They have to be. They're expected to be. Nobody wants to see their flaws. Nobody wants them to make mistakes. So they have to pull these walls up all the time. And then in their private environment, they're sometimes really afraid to be themselves, because the entire image is crumbling down of who they are, or who they're supposed to be. So yeah, it's super interesting. I've learned so much working with them. It makes you connect with people on a deeper level, because you have to, otherwise you won't get in.
Absolutely. Very interesting. Yeah, there's all those layers of protection, same as in counseling, and they're necessary. We need them to survive, those layers of protection, but they also can hinder some of that processing as well, and it can be so. I would imagine it's so invalidating to our experience as a human to have to act different all the time than how we truly feel as a person. So my daughter's 6, and she always says she wants to be an actress. She always says she wants to be a rock star, and I'm like, oh, baby, you want to be a producer. You want to be, you know what I mean? You want to create the show. You want to be Marta Kaufman. You don't want to be Jennifer Aniston, and but who knows what she'll do. But that's kind of what I think my mindset is somebody who's interested in humans and people in real life. My mind goes to, I used to go, oh, I wish I was Courtney Cox, right? And now it's like, no, I want to be Marta Kaufman. I want to be the writer. I want to be the showrunner. I want to be the creator of the show. I want to be Carter Bays. I don't want to be Neil Patrick Harris, right? Just because of all of these, the spotlight stress that comes with being the person in front of the camera. And there are so many benefits to being the person in front of the camera, but there's also a lot of very unique challenges. Wonderful. So, and you noted to us that you've had a great counseling experience and you've had a mediocre counseling experience. And also you let us know that in Arise, we can read about your own personal transformation story. So did counseling play any part in that?
Oh, for sure. And to be honest, I went to a psychologist already as a kid. My parents divorced when I was 3.5 years old. My brother was 1.5. So we had some rough younger years. So when I had probably 12 when I was going for the first time, and then again when I was 14, and then shit really started going wrong. So then in my 20s, I'll be honest, I tried everything. I tried everything from alternative therapies to the spiritual realm to my personal development, which was probably what I would say was the most impactful. But the thing is, whatever I did, going from psychologists to therapists to Reiki healing to all these things, to courses that I took to improve myself, it was all very temporary. It was all very on the surface that we were working. And I never really felt like something drastically changed my life until I was stuck in a burnout around 6 years ago. And, you know, at some point you've hit rock bottom, and that's so different for everyone. And to be honest, my rock bottom this year was a lot deeper than it was back then. But back then, that was the deepest I was willing to go. So when you've reached that point, it's very interesting because then you start moving back up. And then you start working towards that light again because you're not willing to go deeper into the darkness anymore. And that's where I was at. And that's where counseling helped me a lot more. But also because the woman I was going to was very practical. She was teaching me practical tips and exercises, but also because I was very coachable at that point. I was consuming everything, even online, free courses, free this, free that, everything I could find, doing a silence retreat, doing spiritual events, everything I could find. I absorbed it like a sponge and made it my own so that I could become a more positive person that felt strong and good about herself. And that actually really taught me a lot, that transformation. So I have noticed there are good counselors for sure that you can really, but that's probably the reason why I love the coaching work, because it's so constructive. It's building forward. And I very firmly believe that everyone in their life, we're all at different stages. And for every stage, there is counseling that's very useful. Because as a child, I was so introverted. And even though I felt like it was useless to me at that point, because I didn't get much change out of it, it did learn me how to reflect. It did learn me to turn inside, you know, my attention inwards. It learned me to talk about my emotions, to feel my emotions, because I was the child who would always say, I don't like to talk about that. And I just wouldn't. It was like blocked and you would not get in, and I wouldn't either. You know, it was like so guarded. So it's interesting because every step of the way you learn something. And it's just, you know, what phase am I at in my life? And to me at one point it was like, I want to educate myself. I want to make sure that I am the best coach I can be, so that I can help people who really want to move forward, who are at that, not feeling depressed because there's other people who can help them better. That's not me. I'm there for the people who feel like, all right, I want to do this. I want to move forward. I want to claim my shine. I want to go all out and find happiness within myself. That's just a different stage than that some people are at. And it's all good. And there's all perfect and brilliant counselors for each step of the road. And I think that is so beautiful.
Yeah, I like how you've identified some pieces here about what worked for you, excuse me, in those counseling experiences. And I love what you highlight about, even at the time when you were younger and you didn't feel like it was doing anything for you tangibly, you were like, I don't see any change. That's my story too. When I was a kid, I was in counseling and I did not make eye contact. I didn't talk to that counselor. And oh my goodness, I can see the difference that made now. But at the time, week to week, I was like, this is not anything, right? Why am I sitting in this office? And so what I always, and we interview a lot of coaches on this show, and I really always enjoy it because as you highlighted, there are pieces of ourselves that are best fitting for a counseling experience, and looking at things through a counseling lens. And then there are pieces of ourselves that are best fitting for looking at things through a coaching lens. And we need all of the different supports because, my eye doctor can't help me with my teeth. And it's the same. The same with coaches and therapists and counselors. We need all of that. But what I really like about coaching, I've noticed in doing the show over the last couple of years and talking to so many coaches, is that coaches tend to be extremely specialized. And that is one thing that, mental health counselors, we can specialize, and we can specialize in different techniques, or we can specialize in different symptomology. But coaches tend to be very specialized, like, one out of 100 people or 1 out of 1,000 people is right to get this kind of coaching. And that tends to be, I find, far more specialized than in the mental health counseling field, because like you said, somebody who is a high achiever, is a performer, may have depression, and that's absolutely, if they've got depressive symptoms from major depressive disorder, that is absolutely a time to see a mental health therapist. And somebody who is never in the public eye and has huge stage fright may also have major depressive disorder, and that is a time to see a therapist. But both of those individuals would not be a fit for your type of coaching, with coaching artists. And so I think that the specialization that goes into coaching, I always just find very, very interesting, because it must be 1 in 10,000 people that might be a fit for what you're specializing in, those high performance artists. So I think it's always really interesting. But yes, I love what you're saying about counseling in coaching, and it sounds like you were ready to change, and I think that's so important in counseling and in coaching. So wonderful. And you said your quote. So we had asked you, what's your favorite quote, and you just said it to us. You said, claim your shine and own it. And now, is this your own quote that you? Yeah, I love that. And tell us about what it means to claim your own shine and to own your own shine.
Yeah, well, I think that to me, that's what my program, the way I've worked with people, that's what it's about. That's also what I'll be describing in my book, Spotlight Stress. So the entire process of doing that and achieving that will be completely full out written in that book. And that's what, my high ticket clients have paid a lot of money for, to really find that and have that experience. And I like to compare it with, we all have this diamond within ourselves that is yearning to get some attention and to be seen and to come out. And, you know, most of us feel like, you know, I know there's so much more. And everybody keeps telling me I have so much potential, but I don't see it and I don't feel it. And people think I'm confident, but I don't feel it. And it's about those things and about nourishing and treasuring yourself and your inner value, and that being so brilliantly enough that, you know, your diamond cannot do anything else but shine and just be the beautiful goddess or god that you are. And that is claiming your shine and owning it. It's not about what other people do, what other people say, what a situation is, you know, doing to mess up your life. It will always happen because that is life. You know, life doesn't stop just because you're working on yourself. Life will always continue and there will be shit on the road. So best be, you know, your most authentic, beautiful, shiny self, because the brighter your light shines, the easier it is for other people to get lifted up as well. So I like to see it as a way of inspiring others by being you. So that is why I think that, especially for artists and performers being in the spotlight, it is so important that they start to see and value their own light and really letting it out, because the impact is so much bigger than they feel it can be. And that's my biggest mission now. Yeah.
Beautiful. So the book Arise is available now, and then Success Source will be available, and Spotlight Stress will be available as well. So we're excited to be able to read those, and also to read Arise and be able to hear your story and how it sounds like there was a lot of transformation in your life, and very intentional transformation and intentional building of who am I and how do I bring who I am into the world and into how I present. And you touched on the different ways that we numb ourselves as humans, that we try to cope with things that then cause us other problems. And I think that is always such a great thing to be talking about. I don't know that we, you know, as a society talk about that enough, to be honest. So, because there are so many socially acceptable ways to numb out. And, you know, we tell people don't do drugs, and that's fine, but there are other ones that are just as toxic, just as detrimental to our health, and to our lives. So I think that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Cathy, for being on the show. And if you could give one suggestion to somebody on the fence about starting either counseling or starting coaching, what suggestion might you give to them?
Well, I think the most important thing that you can do is feel that you found someone that you really resonate with, that you feel like they get what I'm saying, not just because they know it from the books, but they feel it, they know it, they hone it, they are it, you know. And I that's some feedback that I have from most of my clients. So I think that it's really interesting if you look for a coach that, you know, you talk with someone who is an expert in the theoretical part, but also who's lived it. So I would really make sure that that feeling is on point, because when you start with someone and you don't feel like this is it or this is the person for me, I would say save your money and look for someone else that feels like a better fit. Because otherwise, you know, even from your own perspective, if you're not 100% trusting or on board with the person, you're also wasting their time and energy, because you will never completely do what they say or follow their lead because you're just not buying into it. Or so yeah, go with someone that you really feel good and confident about, and then commit to the process and to the journey, and surrender. Hardest thing ever, but do it, and it's so worth it.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I love that advice. It is all about the feelings and how we experience the coach or the counselor that we are meeting with. And it's not about credentials. It's about how do we feel in the room with that person. I think that is beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Cathy, for being here. We appreciate you. It's been wonderful learning about your work.
I'm Cathy Spaas, and I need a counselor.
Awesome. Me too. So does Chrissa. We all do. And, and I'm a counselor with a coach, and you're a coach with a counselor,
Sure.
right? It's just, it's a wonderful mix of services because there's overlap in terms of, right, what does it mean to be human? And so there's overlap in that regard, but goodness, it's amazing when the two work together. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and we all have blind spots. So it's not because you're a coach, a counselor, psychiatrist. It doesn't matter where you are in life, or it doesn't matter if you're Tony fucking Robbins. I mean, we all have blind spots.
I love Tony Robbins.
Yeah, he's amazing. And I'm sure that if he wants to keep growing, that he will have sparring sessions with like-minded spirits who are maybe specialized in just other parts as well, and just like mirroring out his blind spots. We all have them, so it just makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Love that. The more support we can get, the better. The more eyes we have on ourselves and our situation, the better. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. If you are in Iowa and looking for counseling, go ahead and give us a call, 800-531-4236 at any of our 6 office locations, or for in-home behavioral health services.
And like Julie mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we post new episodes at 5 p.m. Central Time on Sundays. So save up your laundry or whatever task you hate doing and listen to us while you get that done on Sunday and listen to our new episode. And if you have any questions for us, you can reach us on our Facebook page at You Need a Counselor Podcast, or on our Instagram at You Need a Counselor Podcast. So I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.